Welcome to the Healing Bitch podcast. I'm Jackie Ortez, a psychic medium that has a penchant for all things spiritual. During this time with me, we will explore the world of energy and how it affects us all. Each podcast will address a question submitted from my listeners that I feel I have the authority to answer. So get comfy, throw on your headphones, and let's see what happens. So hi, and welcome back to the Healing Bitch podcast. This is the first one of 2025. I'm so excited to have my person that does sessions on me as the guest today. This is Jessica Elaine. Hi, Jessica.
Hey everyone. How are you?
Yeah, so she's going to be going through the kind of sessions that she does on me, some of the fun messages that come through for other people, and then we're going to see what happens. If any spirit wants to pop in and give messages, I have a feeling they do. But yeah, so Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Exciting. I feel like woke up this morning, felt a little refreshed. Like there was some clearing of things that needed to move.
Absolutely. We were having a conversation before this about how I have become an angry beast the past 6 weeks and had some rage bubbling inside of me. And I know I'm not the only person. I know a lot of people have had that. They've also had some family stuff going on. So it was really nice, because I felt it too, to wake up this morning and not feel like a total monster.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Agreed. There's been some stuff like simmering that's like, get out of me.
Oh my God, I know. We're going to release it soon, though. I heard that full moon, the black moon the other night really is helping that process. But anyhow, I'm going to give the mic over to you so you can kind of like explain your process and whatever kind of, whatever comes up, comes in. Let's see.
Okay. All right. I guess a bit about me. This might start there. I've been doing this pretty much my whole life. So as a child, I was always intuitive, sensitive, had things visiting me, could see and understand things no one else could. I just had this intuition about me as a child, and had all these really super spiritual experiences with seeing the ghosts in my house, connecting with deceased relatives, predicting my grandmother's death, and then watching it happen at 10 years old, exactly like I said it was, to just knowing things that other people didn't know and be able to pick up like other people's feelings.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really tough to live with as a child, and as a teenager, very weird. But luckily I found a girl that I became friends with, and her mother was like definitely witchy. And so she was an intuitive as well, and knew and had sensed that I had these abilities. And so she, at that point, was like, hey, let me show you how to control this. Let me show you how to stop these feelings from coming in. And so she taught me a really cool practice of meditation and connecting with guides that I really didn't fully comprehend what it was at 12 years old. So then it just kind of grew. I, went to high school, things changed. I knew I had all these feelings, could understand how to control them. But then, you hit your 20s, and I had my daughter, and all of a sudden one day I just had this wake up like, no, I need to do this. Like, I need to share this with other people and help other people. That's kind of what I was here to do. So then my journey started. And once I accepted it and stepped into it, Spirit was like, okay, we're going to throw you everything we have. We're going to toss you this and that. And I was inundated, but I had a lot of great guides and mentors along the way to help me, which eventually led me to Reiki. So I learned Reiki. Been practicing Reiki now for a really long time. I'm a master certification in one. I have a teaching certification in Jikiden Reiki, which is different than traditional Reiki, as we call it here in the United States. And then we have the most exciting one is Siwa Murti, which is a Balinese form of medicine, of healing work. And it's so fun and powerful. And I got to go to Bali and train with Ratu Nabe, who teaches that, and got to spend some time with a high priest Buddhist monk in Bali as well, learning about meditation and connecting with your inner self. That was so cool. And, of course, I practiced shamanism too, took some courses. But one of my teachers was a Reiki teacher who also practiced shamanism. So a lot of what he taught me became the foundation. And then connecting with my guides is really the biggest teachers that I've had along the way.
I really love that spirit has placed teachers and guiders in your life as it has went.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've been lucky in that, because even to have someone at 12 years old that you can talk to and can teach you something to harness it, because I've heard of so many people that have that natural ability and they don't understand what to do with it even in their older years.
Yeah, and what's hard too is that it's something in my family. So my mother has these abilities, my sisters both do, a little bit different than mine.
Yeah.
And my daughters have this, and my son has this type of stuff. So it's been, I'm so eternally grateful that Spirit was like, we're going to give you the teachers because your mother is not capable of teaching it. So we're going to make sure you have the people in your path. And I really do believe that was contractual before we came here, that this was supposed to happen. These people were supposed to be in my life, and they were supposed to teach me. But yeah, I've been completely blessed to be able to have the mentors I've had. So
that's so cool. Is there, out of everything that you do with like the shamanism, the Reiki, the Siwa Murti, I'm always scared I'm going to say that wrong.
It's okay.
Is there anything that you like prefer doing or kind of like feels like the homey, you know what I mean? Feels like the closest and the most genuine to you, or is it just like a mix of all feels the best?
So it's whatever Spirit decides, you know, like, so my view on what I do is that I'm just a conduit. It's on some level, people might be like, well, Jesse, you had to accept this, part of your contract, your reason for being here is part to do this work. So at some level you had to accept it. And yes, you did. But I still have free will. I could have said no to all of this. But what I find important is I don't like to use the word healer. I don't like to use the word healing. I feel like there's a ton of ego in that, because then that's indicative of I'm doing the work and I'm not. I'm really not. It's Spirit coming through me, connecting with the person, and it's the person's willingness to receive the healing that also really makes a big difference. So if you're not willing to receive the healing I'm giving you, then you're not going to get it. You're not going to receive it, or maybe you only receive a piece of it. And it's really, the sessions are really a session between the person receiving it and the spirit guides, and that's it. And man, they all come in. So ancestors will come in, ascended masters and dragons and, all sorts of spiritual beings that reside in other dimensions are going to be there doing the work. So how I do it is what I do is I connect with the individual first by placing hands on in Reiki. Spirit will start to give me messages where I might need to go to place hands on the body. And then from there, I go into, in shamanism, what we call an alternative state of consciousness, where I actually can go there, see us in the spirit world, see the connection, and actually see the body on a healing slab of stone, and that can change colors. It's like quartz kind of.
Yeah.
And there's grid systems that run over the body. So I can see those grid systems. And over the years, my spirit guides have trained me how to program inside of the grid system with symbols and things like that. So I use whatever they tell me. So, initially when I first make a connection, I ask for Spirit to come in. I ask for all the divine beings who work in white light to come in, and any ancestors that work in light of the person I'm working on, and myself, and any and all spirit guides. So there could be animal guides. It can be, like I said, it can be people from other planets.
Dragons.
That comes in, dragons. And dragons in there quite a bit. And then I have bear, lion, are a couple of the spirit guides I work with, or spirit animals rather, that come in and they'll do work. And those individuals, they come in and they'll do what they need to do. Sometimes they'll pull something out of someone's body, because that's another thing I'm able to do is I can see the blockages within the body, know where they are, and know how to get them out.
Yeah.
so there's so many levels of things that are going on. And so in a session, Spirit might say, okay, they have a blockage, here it is. And I see it and I know how to pull it out. Sometimes Spirit will step in and say, no, you can't pull this one out. We're going to help you. And you stand back and they'll protect me and they'll remove whatever blockage it is. So it depends. Sometimes I'll be doing a session and Spirit's like, nope, you have to do Saheki Chiryo, which is a Jikken and Reiki technique on the person, which is completely different, where we sit you in a chair, I draw some symbols over your head.
We haven't done that in a really long time in a session for me, but we did do it a few times in the beginning.
Yes. And those are cool sessions.
Yeah, they are.
For like a minimum of 20 minutes.
You feel it, and it's interesting because, like, I'm just sitting on the couch like this with my feet up and my eyes, and I literally feel shit just like being vacuumed through my head. And at the end of it, I'm like, whoa.
It totally
I don't
works.
feel like crap anymore.
And it moves some serious stuff. Like, it really does. And it's not that particular Chiryo. Chiryo means treatment in Japanese. It really is not done in Western Reiki, which is what I call, other Reiki here that we've been learning for a long time.
Absolutely.
The Sakata lineage Reiki.
Yes. So. And I feel like the lineage with Reiki that I learned was basically just like the platform to keep adding everything else on.
Yes.
Like, I feel like it wasn't just, here, you're going to learn Reiki, you're just going to keep doing Reiki with everybody. It was like almost like the crown opening that I needed to build my natural practice on top of it. So I could understand the differences. Because, like, I mean, first of all, I don't think you've ever explained like the grids and the symbols and all that stuff. Because every time I see her for a session, first of all, it lasts way longer than it needs to. Because well, I mean, I'm saying needs to. If it was up to me, it would be half of a day. But we sit on the couch and we talk for like a fucking hour about everything that's happening in our lives, and that we've been like, it's not the typical like I'm just listening to what you're saying and stuff. It's just such a nice comfy session because we can just get into the weirdness together and talk about it before and then get the messages and stuff like that. But yeah, so I've never heard you actually explain like how you see it on the bottom, because I mean we would never get to it with the way that we talk.
Yeah, no, we wouldn't. We would go on forever. Sometimes Spirit's like, just shut up and put her on the table.
I know. It's probably, I can guarantee it's probably 75% my fault usually. But that's okay. I live alone. I like to talk.
That's okay. I like talking.
And then
we have good conversations.
Yes, we do. It's the fire sign thing. I bet you. It definitely is. Anyhow, I totally forgot what I was going to ask, which is very typical on brand for me. But, oh, yes. So how does it feel when you're channeling?
Oh, the Arcturians.
Yeah, yes. The Arcturians. Because the way she does it is it's not just receiving messages. They speak through her.
Yes. So...
yeah, and how old were you when that started?
So the channeling is more recent, but... I was, it's interesting because I learn things every time I channel for other people, because sometimes they'll answer questions and they let the memories stay behind so I can recall it. But interestingly enough, I realized eventually that they had been actually working with me since I was a child. So I had been hearing these, and I'm going to sound crazy, hearing these voices in my head for a while. And, it's very distinct voices. One of the channels that I used to hear as a child was they would use thou and thus and these very formal words, an old English that we don't speak anymore. And I would write them down. So I would have these thoughts in my mind and I would go, okay, what, I don't know, what's going to, I had a very tumultuous childhood. So a lot of the thoughts I had revolved around what was going to happen in my family and what was going to happen in my life. And so I would have this thought like, where am I going to live? And all of a sudden I would just hear this voice and feel this overwhelming sensation in my body that I had to write. So I would sit down and I would just write, and I would write and write and write, and I would hear these words. And sometimes it would fill front and back, of loose leaf papers, like 4 or 5 pages of just this channel. And, I don't know what happened to those writings.
Yeah, I was going to ask, have you Do you still have them? Do you
I don't,
see them?
I don't think so. I moved such a long time ago.
Yeah.
And so many times over the years that I think they just got lost or thrown out by family or somebody or what have you. I wish I still had them. I didn't realize what I was doing at such a young age. And it never really came up again. But occasionally throughout my life, someone would have a problem and I would hear these channels and I would write an email to somebody or I would write it over Facebook Messenger and I was like, hey, I have this message for you. Here it is. And I would just put it there and people were right back and be like, oh my gosh, like I needed to hear that. I really needed to hear that.
That's so bold that you even did that.
It was
and
scary.
delivered the messages because people definitely would. They're probably like, what the fuck?
They probably were like, what the fuck? But they probably were like, wow, how did she know this? Right?
Yeah, they're like, what the fuck? And then they're impressed.
Like, and I don't need these. Like, I just was so overwhelming.
Yeah.
I've seen some cool things, angels coming and things like that, being channeled messages through angels. So I've had all these neat things. I just never know what's going to come up. So now what starts happening is fast forward to I've done all the shamanic stuff. I've done all this deep dive. I'm constantly in my daily practice of Siwa Murti on myself and meditating and spending time with my spirit guides, learning from them in journeys / meditations, whatever you want to call it. In shamanism, we call it journeys, and learning from them and them teaching me things. And I started listening to, around the time that I started doing Jikket and Reiki, I started listening to Lee Harris. And he channels his guides from other beings. And I found Lee Harris through the Jikket training that I was taking. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. So I started listening to it. And I found in listening to it, I would actually like move all this stuff out of my body. I would like be super emotional. I'd start crying. Like it was moving stuff.
Wow.
And it felt so surreal. And these guides, these beings who've been with me since I was a child would still talk to me. They don't use the thee, thou, this is really anymore. You've heard them enough times. But my body had been being prepared to carry these energies because you just can't hold them in your body. You really have to be vibrating at a certain frequency. So they lower their frequency and I raise mine. And then we kind of meet in the middle. And that's how I'm able to bring them in. But one day it just happened. I was literally sitting in a Jikket and Reiki class, being an assistant teacher. And all of a sudden I heard them come through and they said, we want to speak. And I was like, okay. And I could feel this energy kind of come into my body, this frequency. And I knew in my gut not to be afraid. And they just came in and they started speaking. And it's so interesting because what it feels like is it's almost like I'm watching it and knowing what's going on. Like I have full cognizance of them being in my body, me knowing what's going on in the conversation, hearing the people, having my own individual thoughts from what's coming out of my mouth. And it's interesting because when I channel, I hear it in my brain and I spit it out. They always give me the first sentence of the channel. And then once I start speaking, it's like the energy just kind of moves fully more densely into my body and then they're fully in. And me stating the first words and getting it in is my acknowledgement of the energy and my way to say yes. And I can kick them out at any time. Like I can ask them to leave if I don't like it. I can have side conversations with them while I'm speaking and channeling. And then what's even more interesting is when they leave, I don't always remember what I channel because it's not necessarily meant for me. It's meant for whoever the recipient is. And then they take that and leave it and then that's it. And they'll only leave me snippets of what I need to know. So I really don't know what's genuinely being said sometimes.
Yeah, I know. I've had to tell you.
Yes.
I've been like, they mentioned Amy for like, I remember
I forgot they did that.
They did because she wasn't doing like the best like a year ago or something. And they're like, she's fine. Stop worrying or something. They're like, she's going to be around for a bit more. And it's funny because so they've always come in for I think maybe out of all the times I've seen you, like twice they haven't come in. They started coming in almost immediately when I started having sessions with you and are pretty consistent. They know when I don't need the messages though. And that I just need to heal because that's happened before. But they've actually told me sometimes that they have to like cut it short because your body can't take it much longer.
Yeah, it's interesting. So my husband gets super freaked out by it. He hates it.
I can imagine. I can imagine he does.
Every time I have a client to come over to do work, he's like, "Did you do it?" And I'm like,
"Did you do it?"
Like, well, yeah, spirit came in. Or sometimes I'll say no, but he's like, "It's so weird. You just shouldn't do that anymore." I'm like, "No, I have to.
You can't control it."
No, I mean, I could.
Yes.
But I had this cosmic agreement with them before I came here. This was part of what I'm supposed to be doing. And they explained that to me. They let me know that that's why they were working with me since I was a child, because it was something my soul had agreed to, and theirs did as well. And really, it was during Jikid and Reiki learning that. And it's so funny because I was when I decided to sign up for Jikid and Reiki, my spirit guides, I was in this really awful part of my life. I was going through so much crap, and I just was in this horrific place. My guides were like, "You got to learn another Reiki." And I was like, "What?" Like, what do you mean I didn't?
You're like, "I have enough to do right now."
So I did, and it was during the pandemic, and that was really the conduit of when all this stuff started happening with me, really connecting to the other planets, the other places. Kind of had once upon a time before I moved to New Jersey, so like over 15 years ago, I had an experience holding an Lemurian. I have this big, gigantic Lemurian crystal. It's like awesome. And I held it meditating, and I had this out of body experience where I left and went to another like planetary place where I was floating up in the galaxies. At this kind of middle meeting ground, and I had a being come to me and communicate with me and was telling me that I had lived on other planets before, and that my husband's family had lived on other planets before, and that I had the connection with the stars, and I'd be doing work with them. And I was like, "Oh, that's interesting."
That's fun.
Have I lost my mind? I had never had an experience like that, but many years later, fast forward, and now all of a sudden I'm channeling. So I've channeled on my husband one time. Another being came in that I have not actually ever channeled again. And it was a very high vibrational being. And she came in, and she had this beautiful energy, and she was very ethereal in how she was speaking, very kind of high-pitched voice. And the vibration in my body, I will never forget. It was like absolutely insane, just how I was like tinging and sparkling. It's like the only word I can use.
That's so cool.
And she was there for she spoke maybe 2 minutes, but I distinctly remember her, because she allowed me to remember it, saying, like, "I can only say what I need to say very quickly, because your wife can't hold me in her body for that long."
Yeah, that
period
makes
of time.
sense.
But I was vibrating just enough to have her come in, and that was really neat. And then I've actually. For you, actually, I think I've channeled unicorns, right? Unicorns?
Yes, you have.
I did the unicorn channel.
That was only a few months ago. That wasn't that long ago.
No, it wasn't. And so they come in every now and again. They'll come in and work on people in my healings and the alternative state of consciousness. But I've channeled mostly for you the unicorns, and only one other person.
I think you mentioned that when it happened, like the first time or whatever, that it was the first time it ever happened, or no. No, it wasn't that. There was something in one of the sessions. Oh, because you saw a past life with me and Amy. So an animal or something. You said you normally don't see that. I don't know. I don't remember.
I don't know.
Everything happens. It's fine. It's fine. So on top of all that happens in sessions, we also do past lives.
Yes.
And we use Ho'oponopono.
We do use Ho'oponopono
to get rid of that stuff that we have dragged in from past lives.
Yes, we do. It's interesting because I didn't know what Ho'oponopono was until I was talking to another friend, and I was explaining to her how I was like moving things for past lives out of people's bodies, and she's like, "Oh, that's Ho'oponopono." I'm like, "It's what?"
Yeah.
So I bought the book and read it and was like, "Oh, but it came from spirit." So that just tells you how crazy connected everything really is, and how the same messages are out there. It's just understanding them and needing to tap into them.
Yeah, I knew immediately what you were doing because I learned it in 2019. not how to do it, but I learned about it and had some sessions doing it with like this big NLP class that I did.
Oh, okay.
With the NLP stuff with your mind, the neuroscience stuff with your mind. Yeah. Having a session with her is just a different experience altogether because so much happens.
Yeah, it's not just Reiki.
No.
It's funny. It's like if you go, if you have my link to do scheduling, it literally says it's an intuitive Reiki session.
Yeah.
And it's about an hour and a half, but it really usually goes about 2, depending on the person.
Yes.
So it's especially first time. First time I have to explain what's going to happen. But what's interesting though is I never get, nothing ever comes out that shouldn't, I guess.
Yeah.
It's like whatever that person is ready to move and release. And then sometimes I'll get clients and they'll just come in and it's literally just like, okay, it's just a very peaceful session. I'm doing a ton of work. I'm moving energy, but there's no messages from spirit. Sometimes there's no channel because either the person's just not ready to receive that message yet, or their body's not in the proper place to receive the message. I had done work on a woman and it was a very quiet, lovely session. And spirit, we moved a bunch of stuff, but her body was, she's another energy worker. So her body really was so just exhausted from giving so much of herself and not taking care of herself enough to, and that happens to all of us. That there's no judgment there when I say that, because I do that too. And she just was so tired, and she even came back, 2 weeks later, and it was the same thing. Her body was just so physically tired, and it just happens sometimes. But then sometimes, like with the client I just had recently, who we were talking about before we came here, it was like she got everything. She got the channeling. She got just everything. So you never know. Again, it's just spirit session.
That's just, that's true. It depends. And that happens to me too. Like I was doing a whole series of readings the other day, and one person, I literally could read them for 6 minutes, and then spirit was like, that's it. You're done. And I was like, you have 14 minutes left, but I have nothing to tell you. And I think at that point I was a little drained too. But the next person came in who happened to be her sister, and then a ton of messages came through right away. Yeah. So it really depends on what the person needs, and it depends on what spirit wants to deliver. And going along with all of that and all this work, what are some things that you do yourself to make sure that you stay in a good state, like clearing energy, and like especially after seeing people? And what is your routine like?
So this is going to sound crazy to probably most of the listeners, that if you're doing this work, some people will do things and they'll draw Reiki symbols in the corners of the room.
Yeah.
I don't do that. I basically, when I disconnect, I just strictly be like, okay, I recall all of my energy from all times, all places, and call it back to me. And then I give back any type of energy to that person. And sometimes you'll feel a shift. And that's about as much of a ritual as I get into before and after. As I mentioned earlier, before I start the session, I ground myself and call in the spirit guides, call in all of my spirit guides, my ancestors who work in light, the spirit guides of the person I'm working on and their ancestors who work in light. And that's really it. And just, I kind of place myself in a connect and ground to make sure that I'm in a good headspace so that I can be that clear conduit. And that's it. But what I do in a daily, oh man. So so sometimes it's better than others, but with Siwa Murti, every day I get up, I do my Siwa Murti practice where I move a lot of the energy through my body, calling in the Balinese deities and guides to kind of come in, clear me, heal me. And then I do that first, and I give my offerings and do my cleansings of myself daily through Siwa Murti. And then give thanks to that. And then what I'll do afterwards, I'll go into a journey, and I'll sit with my spirit guides. For me, it's like a light switch. And when I say a journey, it means like, and my spirit guides right now are just like, we're so happy you're talking about this.
Well, I'm happy you're talking about it too. So
yeah. So what we all should be doing is there's my spirit guides will generally guide people, and they'll say, okay, you got to have in your brain a place set aside where you can go and visualize. So if you're great at visualization, this is a great thing that you can do. You picture someplace outdoors where you really love to go. You see yourself there, and that's where you go and you just chill. Now, that's a magical place. Nothing can happen to you. It's strictly for you, your healing and connection with your guides. And that's where you go. And so I was taught this when I was 12, as I mentioned. So I had this place and I built it up, and I can go do all these crazy journeys, and I go swimming in the ocean, and I come up to other places, and my spirit animals will come in and they'll work on me. My guides will come in and work at me. I'll meet new guides there. So this is a place where you can really meet your spirit animals, your spirit guides, your spirit helpers, to kind of come in and help with you and work with you. And they'll introduce themselves to you. And so I go to this place, and they'll do clearings on me, healings on me. They'll tell me what I need. They'll guide me. And generally, you have to be careful, because if you ask spirit, like, can I go do this? They'll say, sure, because you have free will. Yeah, if that's what you want. Yeah, girl, go do it. But if you ask your
girl, go do it.
Right. But if you ask your spirit guides, the very keenly different question is, what's in my highest good?
Yeah, I was going to say, it's definitely a question that involves your highest good.
Right. So you always got to say, Spirit, is this in my highest good?
Yeah.
What is in my highest good? And then they'll give you that answer. That they truly can see what is in your highest good. And that's an important thing, because it's funny. I'll talk to people who've been doing this a long time, and then they're like, well, I asked my spirit guides and they said yes. I said, but did you ask them if it was in your spirit, your highest good? Because my guides are telling me that your guides are saying it's not.
Because you're asking the wrong way.
You're asking the wrong way. So it becomes, challenging for people to do this.
Yeah.
And it's amazing, because like when I was in Bali, and when I work with a lot, believe it or not, a lot of my clients that come to see me are other practitioners and different types of healing modalities. And when they come and they see me, none of them are really connecting with spirit. And so spirit's always like, you need to tell them to connect with me, because your teacher is spirit. Your teacher are your guides. We've contracted with these beings to help us and give us answers and help us through our lives. And they know, but better than we do sometimes, what is good for us. And we're not tapping into that. We're not really listening to that.
I wasn't for a long time. I think I was not when I first started coming.
No,
I was not. And then eventually they were like, thank you
for
acknowledging me. But I was in a very different place. It's been almost 3 years now.
Right. So what's crazy is that we and this goes back to the word healer, right? So
yes.
And I'll go back to Bali experience, because spirits like talk about Bali. So in Bali, I was meeting with all these other people who are amazing light workers working in Balinese energy. They're working in other modalities. And, I'm there with them. We're having these just life-changing experiences together. And then they're like, well, I can't figure it out. They're using the I statement.
Yes.
And so I'm like, well, what do you mean? Did you try talking to your guides? What did their guides say? And they're like, well, what do you mean you're talking to the guides?
Yeah, maybe you don't need to figure it out. Maybe you need to get the message.
Right. So I started having these conversations with these individuals while in Bali about connecting with spirit and connecting with the spirit guides and how to do it. And there are I've retained obviously a lot of those great relationships, and those individuals like, wow, it was life-changing, because now I started having answers. I didn't have to doubt myself anymore. I had spirit literally telling me, this person needs Reiki here, or this person needs a Siwa Murti healing here. They had the answers they needed. They could also get the messages that spirit was trying to get to these people.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is that spirit wants to share their messages with people, but a lot of people can't hear their messages because they don't know how to connect with them. They're not connected or in a place because they're so present and living in fear on this planet that they're just not connected. They're not paying attention. And spirit, through people that do this type of work, this light work, we can really help those people find their way to spirit so that they can start having their own experiences. They become more spiritual. It raises the vibration of the planet. And that's what we need right now.
Yes, absolutely. We definitely need everyone I feel like everyone is being called to look more inner, to connect with spirit more, to believe in themselves more and to put their ego aside, because I know a significant thing you said, I think it was like 2 sessions ago to me, that really, really I keep in my mind a lot. Or, well, you didn't say. When you were channeling, it was said, was like the story that they were telling me of how, Jesus, how the work I do does not make me better than anybody else.
Yes.
And it actually, I will completely admit, I am human. I have an ego side. And there are times when it peaks out because I've done so much work on myself and I do connect with spirit, and I have to stop and be like, reel it in. Like that is not the way you should be operating. And that is not your authentic self. That is just something that, you know what I mean?
Yep, I do.
Yeah.
I do. Yeah, ego is not bad though.
No.
Ego gets us where we are. Like when I'm not doing this work, I have like a corporate job and I do all this training and teaching, and I'm working in car dealerships. That's what I do.
Yeah.
So I'm in this really like high ego, high crazy place. And it's a very interesting because it's dynamic, because it's very different. It's like completely opposite of doing the work that we're doing.
Same.
But I will say this, ego gets us where we are. Ego is there to protect us from scary situations, but ego is also there to help us learn lessons. And I think we forget that. But if you are aware of your ego, and you're aware of your thinking habits, because your thinking habits, anything in the mind is ego.
Yeah.
And as long as you're aware of what you're thinking, you can change what you're thinking. And you can use that second brain, which is your gut instinct, and say, oh, I really need to listen to that and not listen to what's up here. Because, usually you'll get a gut feeling and then you'll logicize it away. You'll be like, yeah, there's no logic behind that. I didn't see that. I didn't hear that. I didn't experience that. And I'm just making it up, or we justify things. But that gut, man, that's the number one thing we have to listen to.
Yeah.
And, I, for whatever reason, have been always very in tune to that as a child. Even as a teenager, it saved my life, literally, once. I had a friend invite me to the mall, and I was going to be sitting on somebody's lap. And it was the kid who was driving was a friend of ours, and my gut was like, no, don't go. I heard it so strongly, like felt it in my every fiber of my being. And I lied. And I was like, yeah, my dad said I couldn't go to the mall, which was crazy. And they end up getting in a high-speed chase and hit a brick wall going 65 miles an hour. And one of the girls dies, and the other girl goes through the windshield and breaks her arm. And she's in the ICU for like 3 months. So it was... If I had been there, because I was, really tiny back then.
Yeah.
I would have been sitting on someone's lap, and it wouldn't have been good. So that intuition is there for a reason.
Yes.
And too many times we don't listen to it. So yeah. So there's that.
Yeah. So that's just a little bit about her. Just a little bit. And about her journey that has went on. And thank you for joining me.
Thank you
so
for having me.
much. If people want to find you and you want to be found, how would they do that?
Oh, that's a good question. So my website isn't up yet.
It hasn't been up for a long time.
I know. So my goal was to do it, and I didn't do it before the new year. So I have to get that up. They can just, I guess, for the interim, just maybe message you.
Just message me either at the Healing Bitch Podcast on Instagram. You can just send me a message and I'll give you the scheduler or contact information, whatever you prefer. Or you can contact me at Healing Guidance Jackie on Instagram, and I will hook you up. But anyway, thank you for listening to this, and there will definitely be a part 2.
Yes, part 2.
That goes along. So thank you, and see you soon.
Thank you.